The white sari with 3 blue stripes is a global shorthand for absolute charity. For decades, Mother Teresa occupied a space in the public imagination as the final word on human goodness. The origin story begins in 1946 on a train to Darjeeling. According to her own testimony, a sudden divine calling prompted the 36-year-old nun to leave her walled convent and enter the Calcutta slums to live among the poorest of the poor. This mission didn't stay small. Backed by the highest authorities in the Vatican, the Missionaries of Charity became a global franchise, turning a local effort into an international symbol of religious authority. This photogenic narrative filled a global vacuum. By providing a simple, comforting image of a savior, the myth obscured the intricate and often troubling ways the organization actually operated on the ground. Investigative accounts from reporters like Robert Walker began to look past the carefully managed publicity. They found that the cameras only captured the version of Calcutta the world was willing to consume. When medical professionals and former nuns began speaking out, they described a second Teresa, an administrator whose internal policies prioritized religious doctrine over the physical survival of her patients. This is where absolute faith met systemic poverty. The investigation revealed a system where the desire to help was secondary to a much darker theological framework. At the center of her work was the belief that human suffering was a blessing from God. This conviction turned her clinics into sites of intentional, institutionalized neglect. Inside the homes for the dying, perception of healing was replaced by the reality of warehousing. These facilities functioned as holding pens for the sick, regardless of whether their conditions were treatable. The medical policy was dictated by a specific doctrine, the idea that physical agony brings a person into redemptive union with the Passion of Christ. Dr. Mustafi and Sister Catherine documented the results of this philosophy. They found patients dying of tuberculosis that could have been cured with basic antibiotics, and children with disabilities physically tied to wooden chairs for 14 hours a day. These clinics maintained a strict policy of withholding pain medication. Even terminal cancer patients were denied morphine, a choice justified as a spiritual necessity to ensure they remained close to the cross. Within this system, alleviating pain was treated as a spiritual failure. The organization weaponized the concept of charity, using the bodies of the poor to demonstrate a theology that valued suffering over recovery. While her clinics operated in squalor, the charity accumulated staggering wealth, reporting $50 million in bank deposits, with almost no investment in medical infrastructure. Former nun Susan Shields tracked these donations sitting idle in accounts, generating interest while clinic operations remained underfunded. Volunteers reported being told to reuse dirty needles, washed only in cold water, while millions remained unspent. The organization insisted that poverty itself was holy, even when they had the funds to eliminate it. The Missionaries of Charity operated as a dragon's hoard. They gathered global capital by promising to help the poor, but used that money to maintain a profitable aesthetic of deprivation instead of building actual hospitals. To protect this massive, unaccountable empire, the organization formed strategic alliances with some of the world's most problematic power brokers. In 1981, Mother Teresa traveled to Haiti to receive the Légion d'honneur from dictator Jean-Claude Duvalier. She publicly praised his relationship with the poor, providing moral cover for a regime that was actively looting the country. She accepted over $1 million from Charles Keating, architect of a massive American financial fraud. When he was finally prosecuted for stealing the life savings of retirees, she wrote to the judge asking for clemency. This created a closed loop of corruption. Corrupt figures purchased spiritual absolution with stolen funds, while Mother Teresa ignored the systemic causes of the poverty those same men were creating. In 2016, the Vatican finalized the myth. Through a fast-tracked process, they officially declared Mother Teresa a saint before a crowd of thousands in St. Peter's Square. The required miracle centered on a woman named Monica Bezra. The church claimed that a tumor in Bezra's abdomen suddenly disappeared after she prayed to Mother Teresa. However, Dr. Mustafi's medical records showed a different story. Bezra was diagnosed with tuberculosis and had undergone 9 months of prescription antibiotic treatment. The miracle followed the exact timeline of a standard medical recovery. The Vatican hierarchy, led by Pope Francis, chose to ignore these clinical records. By validating the miracle despite the evidence of medical science, the Church prioritized the survival of the brand over empirical truth. The canonization was the final step in sealing the myth. It protected the narrative from institutional accountability, ensuring that the sanitized version of her life would become the official history. This cycle is the Teresa Paradox. It's a self-sustaining system where glorifying suffering attracts the very donations used to maintain it. When an organization values pain's spiritual meaning over its elimination, it creates a perverse incentive. The poor must remain visible, suffering, and dependent. This stands in direct contrast to evidence-based humanitarianism. Actual medical intervention focuses on results, using stored capital to buy antibiotics, hiring trained nurses, and working specifically to end the conditions that cause pain. We accepted the myth because it allowed us to outsource our conscience. By donating to a saint who made poverty look beautiful and spiritually significant, the global public could feel absolved of the need to address the structural inequalities that make such charity necessary. Meaningful humanitarian work depends on medical competence and a direct intent to eliminate the pain we claim to care about. Anything less isn't charity, it's the maintenance of a myth at the expense of the vulnerable.